Greetings everyone, peace to you all. Welcome to another episode of Praiseworthy Reviews, where we go through video games to see if they are excellent and commendable. Today, we will be reviewing ballxpit, 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 a block-breaking roguelike from indie developer Kenny Sun and friends. Players play as heroes trying to restore Balbalon going into a pit. Despite playing games mostly for the narrative, I honestly don't know what the story is for this game, but the gameplay is very similar to Arkanoid and Peggle, but with roguelike elements. As usual, we will be evaluating the game based on 5 criteria: fun factor, educational value, cultural value, spiritual value, and cost. For context, prior to this review, I have played some Peggle games in the past, as well as Vampire Survivor, and I have finished this game to the credits. So without further ado, let's jump in. There are 2 main gameplay phases that ballxpit is broken up into: ball breakout runs and base building. The ball breakout runs are kind of Vampire Survivor meets Arkanoid. Players begin each run by choosing a character, each with a different starting ball and passive abilities. There are a wide variety of characters, 16 in total, some of which are simple variants, but others which change the gameplay in rather unique ways. Players use a character to shoot balls at enemy monsters in attempts to clear the field and defeat the bosses without dying. During the run, as the character levels up, the player chooses from a set of different options for new balls, passive abilities, or upgrading an existing ball or ability in a roguelike manner. Players can also pick up special power-ups called fusion reactors that fission to level up a few abilities at a time, evolve balls into a more powerful ball, or even fuse 2 balls into 1, which brings us back to the name, ballxpit. The various maps or levels have different enemy types, such as ranged, melee, blocking, hiding, etc. As the levels progress, the enemies have more and more abilities. The bosses are interesting, not particularly mind-blowing, but certainly challenging enough to consistently stop runs successfully. Balls have different abilities, both in RPG ways like AoEs and dots, as well as in physics-based block-breaking ways like going through enemies or bounce speed. As players complete runs or die, they collect resources and experience that can be used for meta progression, which brings us to the second phase of the game. After finishing a run, players return to Balbalon, where they can perform a variety of tasks. In town, players can build economy, warfare, and housing type buildings. Economy buildings are focused on generating resources more quickly, which will help other upgrades and buildings. Warfare buildings help with stat bonuses and passive abilities that players can use during runs, and housing buildings generally unlock and buff specific characters. In order to build buildings and harvest resources, players must place the buildings and resources, then send workers, meaning the characters you unlock, to harvest those resources in a Peggle-like ball bouncing game. This simple gameplay is surprisingly relaxing, and I generally look forward to doing harvesting and upgrading between runs. As the game progresses, players can excavate more space for buildings and upgrade the elevator to get new levels for the runs. Runs can be done pretty quickly, averaging about 15 minutes each, which gives the game an addicting quality that makes you want to do several in a row each time you play. I had a good time, so overall I'm going to give the game 4 stars for fun factor. Despite being real-time, not a lot of motor skill is required. Shooting can be set to be automatic, and player movement isn't particularly quick or precise. Even dodging projectiles, the hitbox is very forgiving. There is little in the way of learning factual or conceptual knowledge of the real world, although sometimes it can be fun to guess what the fusion of 2 balls is going to be called. For example, I thought the earthquake ball plus the fireball would be volcano eruption, but it was called magma. Or poison and bleed would be illness, but it was called virus. Some of the characters are cleverly named as well, and make sense for their abilities, but I don't want to spoil anything. The real educational value is in the physics predictions in terms of shooting the balls and the ball bouncing, like in brick breakout games and billiards. The roguelike abilities that you can select also have quite a bit of strategic depth during runs, and the combinations of character abilities and balls becomes deeper and more complicated as time progresses. Overall, I'm going to give the game 4 stars for educational value. As far as the artistic aspects of the game are concerned, the pixel art is not bad, better than I thought it would be. There seemed to be 2 different levels of pixel art. Some of it was pretty mediocre. The animation and special effects for the balls were probably the strongest parts of the game. The music and sound design is satisfactory. There is no voice acting and basically no narrative to speak of. Technically, there is some plot about Babylon, but I honestly can't tell you what it is. I got to the credits and I am still not sure what the ending is. So as far as the artistic value, I was not impressed. However, there is quite a bit of cultural impact. Ball Pit sold 400,000 copies in its first week and 1 million units at time of recording, 1 month later. As a result, they are celebrating with 3 free content updates expected in 2026. Since this is a small studio, I don't know if there will be any sequels, but I do imagine the impact of the game will be felt on the roguelike genre for some time to come. Overall, I'm going to assign Ball Pit 3 stars for its cultural value. As far as spiritual value, there is little positive or negative content. There's nothing to worry about here. No nudity or sex, no alcohol or drugs, no vulgar language, and basically only ball violence. There are some skeletons and monster enemies, but for the most part, it's pretty tame. On the flip side, there is also very little positive content. There's no positive portrayals of anything, not even teamwork. ESRB rates this as T for teen for blood and violence, but I honestly think that might be a little conservative. There's little in the way of any sort of messages at all, so there will not be a biblical themes video for this game. Overall, I'm going to give Ball Pit 3 stars for spiritual value. For the time poor, Ball Pit can be completed in around 22 hours or so, although honestly, rolling credits doesn't really mean much. For the time rich, even after rolling credits, there is a new game plus with special new variations of levels. Also, even when I finished the game, I hadn't quite built all the available buildings or upgraded all of them. As a result, I think there is plenty of replayability even after finishing the game. Ball Pit retails for $14.99 USD, which I found to be an almost perfect price for this. Overall, based on the content value and asking price, I'm going to give the game 5 stars for cost. Ball Pit is a relatively simple idea. Arkanoid meets roguelike vampire survivors, but it executes its idea not only well, but pretty much to the max. Through its characters, it experiments with basically every variation of the game that you could possibly imagine. And I think it's a great example of how you can use the roguelike nature of the game to try some interesting things. For me, it wasn't as groundbreaking or special as it seems to be for some others. I think it was a great game to unwind with, but not one I particularly looked forward to playing. Based on the criteria discussed in the video, I subjectively assign Ball Pit the rating of sale selection. That's all I have for you in this video. Bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If this video blessed you in some way, please consider watching some of my other videos, subscribing, sharing the video with your friends, or sharing with me some of your thoughts in the comments below.